Have you played the role of mentor ever? Just kind of helping anyone structure their career or shape their career to kind of.
I mean, I'm taking so this week I'm going to Woodward West and I'm bringing a kid that I give product to, visual boards and croupier wheels, and he's getting other stuff like Thunder from Jim and Adidas from Carl Watson. Like, he's just a rad little kid who's on his, he's 14, he rips. Whenever you see him at a skate park, people are like, oh, wow, like, they have that, right? Like, his name's Corey Onstia, and I haven't seen a kid skate this way in a really long time in person, right? Like, where it's, like, he'll be good at the park, but you take him to the streets, and he's got that creative outlet to go into the streets and do something different, right? Like, he's different. It's rare to have those kids, and I'm trying to help them right now. So hopefully you see him in the future.
Does he represent you'd like to see the next generation to embrace or model after?
Yeah, I guess he would be a good role model for kids to embrace. Like, he's listening, and he's got me pushing him, right? Like, I'm telling him what he should try and take him to street spots. Hey, I think you could do this here, and he'll do it. And I don't want to consider myself a coach, but I could see the potential of what he can do. I know kind of his trick list and where to take him to go and showcase those in the streets, right? So, excuse me. Sorry, Red Bull. Oh, take it. Let me take another. All right. Back to the interview. No, but so I usually pick him up at his house. He lives, South Central, doesn't have the best environment around him, right? So I'm trying to just take him out, show him street skating, film him. I got my camera gear, and I feel like I'm pushing him. So, but I guess that's my mentoring. That's the question. Yeah, I mentor skaters. I try to help them and get involved as much as I can.
We were having fun with this other word kind of keeps popping up in an interview, and just kind of getting the sense that to be a pro skater, you've got to have kind of some level of comfort with uncertainty. What was your relationship with uncertainty even now?
Now, I mean, shoot. It's hard now. My uncertainty levels are so high. I went to the skate park today and I'm just like, oh man, I'm uncertain I could get up this 3-stair properly right now. Like, I got to warm this body up really hard before, but I don't know. I think that's just skateboarding. There's no, and I feel like that's with I feel like there's so much expectation in skateboarding, and with social media and kids seeing everyone getting things and doing things, and it looks like an easy, I'm going to get into skateboarding because I see this is how they're doing it, and they try to replicate that, but it's not that. It's the most uncertain thing you could ever try to do. Skateboarding is uncertain. Primos are accidental, right? Like, you land primo, it's like, oh, you were certain you were landing that kickflip until you land a primo, right? Like, that's the uncertainty of skateboarding.
And primos happen in cooking.
Primos happen in cooking.
I found that out today.
And life. Life is, you can land primo in life, It's a scary world we live in.
And if you're taking a flight, for the rare audience person that will be watching, what the heck is a primo?
So a primo is, do you have a board? So I'll use this insole package right here.
Yeah.
So here's your deck. There's days where you can land kickflips. Boom! You land them every try. Bam! 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 It's like chewing food. You're like, I got this. Eating, Primos. Boom! You land so gnarly and fall that you just choked on your bite of your burrito. Like, that's uncertainty. That's primo. And that happens when you're not expecting it. Just like life. Life will hit you with a primo so hard that you'll just get hit with a primo. You'll get a vet bill. there's things will hit you in life that aren't expected, and that's a Primo.
I'm going to submit this footage to the online masterclass courses. I feel like you've got something here. Like, don't Primo in life.
Yeah.
I think you could be the next master. You know those master
Yeah.
classes, like the master directors and writers and authors.
You know what the
I think
crazy
that's you.
the craziest thing about Primo is that it was invented by Primo Desiderio, and it was a trick, right? But like, you know, he did it, but as a 90s street skater, since him doing Primo, like doing tricks across his truck sideways and sliding, we were major haters in the 90s. Primo slides, things like that. I mean, I used to get made fun of if I did a Smith grind on a ledge back in the 90s because you didn't do Smith grinds. That was a mini ramp trick. This is a ledge. You don't do that here at Chaffee High School. You have to do tail slides, crew grinds, not mini ramp tricks, right? But yeah, the Primo. That's why Primo was so hated on that was the name it was called when you landed Primo and ate shit.
That's really fun. Those are good roots, good historic roots.
Yeah, I spent half my life not doing Smith grinds, even though they're so fun, because the older guys frowned upon mini ramp tricks on the streets. Just like I make fun of skate park skating.
There sounds like
In the
some
skate
kook
parks.
factor there.
But dude, we're all fucking kooks. No, don't do that. Don't show that. That's gonna be a meme.
That's
Fuck.
we're all fucking kooks. All right, cancel that.
We'll cancel that one. But you know what I mean? Like, no. It was tough. The 90s were tough because you had a new way of skating coming in, switch stance, nollie flips, a certain feel you had to have, switch back tail. Like, there was a EMB driven world we were adopting as street skaters, and the 1 foots, the no complies, the impossibles, the Smith grinds, lip slides. I said lip slides, but like all that kind of like pressure flips, like those were all in this one category where they were kind of, if you weren't up to par on your switch crew grinds and your nollie flips and kind of the newer tricks, you were kind of dissed back then. And I grew up through that as a kid, and it kind of made me who I am today. So I can make fun of some things, and it's not taken to heart. And those guys probably weren't real with it. Like, they weren't pushing it. It was just kind of like, oh, you're a T-Dog. You did that? That's T-Dog shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but as a kid, you're growing up, and you're hearing that. It sucks. Like, that was not the cool trick to do. So I'm just kind of trying to give a little jab back into this world.
Yeah, that's.
There we
Yeah.
There we go.
Can you manage? Is that gonna?
Oh yeah, I can
All right.
for a minute.
I mean, it'll be quick. It's just like my own personal theory.
Yeah.
Or
We're speeding.
I mean, this is like my thought right now on this kind of world we're living in is, like growing up, you'd film video part, you get endorsements, you're doing all these things, you're doing these things for these brands and all this stuff, right? And I think right now what's happening in skateboarding is all the kids are getting good at skateboarding and they're posting all the time and they're constantly at the park and they're putting themselves out there on their social constantly feeding the beast, flooding the internet, right? And what I think is it's going to be harder to get sponsors that way because the guys know you're good. Like the companies are like, oh yeah, all right, send them a couple sets of bearings, send them some shoes, send them this, whatever. And they're going to keep seeding stuff to kids like that with no intention of like getting an endorsement deal because you're doing it for free already. Everyone's doing it for free. And that's the problem right now. And I think, and that's just my theory, but there's everybody doing everything for free and likes that it's taken a lot away from actually getting properly set up with sponsorships.
That's interesting.
That's all I really have to say. Done.
Good.
I'm good.
Cool. All right. One other kind of question while we're just. So you doing all right?
Yeah, good.
If you were watching, so either these had this Woodward Generation episode 2, and then episode 3 is just the future. What if you were watching these? What would you like to see? And then just out of curiosity, like what would get you excited?
So
Someone just said original skating. Others said some really fun personalities. What comes to mind as good